January 18th, 1995.
2 days after the quake, the death toll is rising. The rescues are continuing. And questions are being raised about Japan's preparedness and about our own.
We are playing Russian roulette. It's just a matter of whether we have enough time to fix up those things over the next 50 to 100 years. But Russian roulette can mean that this earthquake will occur tomorrow. And honestly, we are totally unprepared for that.
Tonight, lessons from Kobe.
This is ABC News Nightline. Reporting from Washington, Ted Koppel.
Let's be brutally honest. As horrified as most of us are by the terrible human toll caused by a natural disaster, the degree of impact upon us is often a function of how closely we identify with the victims. A tidal wave in Bangladesh, for example, has less emotional effect on most Americans than a hurricane in Florida. It's a function of familiarity, geography, culture. But most of all, it's because we have a tendency to care in direct proportion to how much of an impact an event has on us personally. These are the latest casualty figures from the earthquake in Japan. Over 3,000 dead, close to 15,000 injured, over 600 people still missing. Just imagine for a moment if we were talking about New York or Chicago or New Madrid, Missouri. Well, we could be. One reason that the casualty figures in Osaka and Kobe are so high is that expectations of a devastating earthquake there were so low. Just as we are more likely to expect an earthquake in Los Angeles or San Francisco than in New York or Missouri, so too in Japan, experts had focused largely on Tokyo and less on Kobe. And yes, earthquakes are possible and have occurred in New York and Missouri. So as you watch tonight's broadcast, remember, if you need to, that it could happen here. We begin with this report from Sheila McVicker.
Another dawn over the still smoldering ruins of Kobe. New fires broke out overnight. There is still no water to fight them. Tens of thousands have left the city. Those who have stayed are crowded into school gymnasiums. Their only possessions, what they have collected around them. Whole neighborhoods in Kobe are gone, destroyed by the fires that burned after the earthquake shook houses apart. There were streets here, and shops, and families. Outside the ruins of homes, neatly lettered signs. The Kuroda and Nakai families want their friends to know they are all fine and have gone to stay at a shelter. But their neighbor, Mr. Kimura, is posting a sign for his children. It reads, "I have gone to look for your mother. Let me know where you are." There are still hundreds missing, many buried under tons of rubble. The nights are cold. After all these hours, it would seem chances of survival slim. But there were some small miracles today. 2 women pulled from the ruins and reunited with their family. In another district, a crowd gathered as rescuers searched. 64-year-old Shinji Adachi pulled from the rubble after more than 30 hours in the ruins of his house. His elderly mother died. He says there are still more people trapped. Japanese television has shown pictures of the first mass funeral for the victims. There will be more. Before the earthquake, Kobe was a prosperous modern city. For the last 2 days, survivors have been reduced to camping in the midst of urban desolation. Those that still have shelter have no water. In some neighborhoods, they are using what they have salvaged to scoop water from the gutters. We don't know where this water comes from, says this man, but if we boil it, it should be safe. The scale of the devastation has stretched the emergency services. Improvised bucket brigades fought fires. If we all cooperate, we can put this fire out, shouts the block organizer. But everywhere there is still confusion and shock and disbelief. The Japanese believe that more than any other nation, they had prepared for an earthquake even more severe than the one that hit Kobe. Building code standards are among the world's most strict. Freeways and railways are supposed to be earthquake resistant. Already, experts here are starting to ask what went wrong.
We have very good designed freeways and railways to be safe against the sudden amount of earthquakes.
And now?
And now this one is far away. I mean, that's much more than we expected. That's devastating.
The Hanshin Expressway snapped and twisted. Steel reinforcing rods, the earthquake-resistant technology of the 1960s, not enough to withstand the sharp shocks of this quake. This Tokyo University professor says this bridge was designed to absorb earthquakes of this magnitude, but obviously it failed. And that means the power of this earthquake was unbelievable. A new building with one story squashed flat. Others now structurally damaged, probably beyond repair.
I don't truly think anyone anticipated that there would be this level of damage in Japan. They felt that they had built their buildings and their structures in such a way that they would not fail.
What do you think Japanese think now?
Well, we must do self-checking very severely now.
Earthquakes in Japan are serious business. One of this century's worst struck outside Tokyo in 1923. 140,000 people died, most of them in fires. More than 500,000 homes were destroyed. Japan sits on top of one of the world's seismic hotspots. 3 of the Earth's tectonic plates come together here. Much of the seismic activity has been concentrated in the north. Tokyo regularly shakes with minor tremors. The last major quakes in the Kobe-Osaka region were nearly 50 years ago. And those 50 years, says Dr. Kameda, have left some Japanese feeling complacent.
Many people have said after spending 50 years of very, very quiet time that they should be free from the earthquake risk. But no place of Japan is free from the earthquake threat.
Every year on September 1st, the anniversary of the Great Kanto quake that devastated Tokyo, disaster prevention drills are held throughout Japan. School children learn to protect themselves. Commuter train passengers practice evacuation procedures. But some Japanese experts believe the sameness of these drills, year after year, add to complacency, and the people should now be trained to be more self-sufficient. By chance, there was a meeting of American and Japanese earthquake experts in Osaka this week. Instead of just discussing the lessons of past earthquakes, this morning they are talking about what they saw in Kobe.
That we have an incredible opportunity to learn from this event and make changes in both of our countries based on what we've seen here this week.
But Japanese experts say the first lesson they have learned from Kobe is how little they know and how many uncertainties they face. Today in Kobe, rescue workers are frantically digging through a mudslide. They believe 20 families may be trapped below. For Nightline, this is Sheila McVicker in Osaka.
When we come back, the frightening similarities between Japan and the United States. Can their tragedy help us lessen our own? We'll bring you a report from California.
This is ABC News Nightline.
Anniversaries of bad events often cause anxiety. For the residents of Southern California, the timing of the Japanese quake couldn't have been much worse. Reporting now from Los Angeles, Judy Muller.
The eerie and terrifying coincidence that the 2 quakes should occur exactly a year apart has triggered considerable empathy in Los Angeles.
The fact that it happened so close on the same very day in Japan just reawakened everybody's thoughts about how close that event was to our hearts and our minds and how it still can happen.
Okay, keep them away from this because this building can still come down.
Other parallels between the 2 disasters are equally eerie. Both the Kobe and Northridge quakes occurred not along major fault lines in the mountains or offshore, as is common, but along secondary fault lines in populated areas.
Northridge was the first earthquake in 60 years to happen in an urban setting in California. And the same thing in Japan. This is the first time in many years that they've had an earthquake under a major urban setting, and you just get a lot more shaking in those situations.
Both California and Japan have prided themselves on earthquake preparedness, complete with building codes designed to withstand the worst, or what they thought was the worst.
Most structures are built strong enough to survive most earthquakes, but occasionally the ground motion exceeds what was expected.
The result? The unexpected. While engineers were not surprised to see the collapse of unreinforced concrete structures built decades ago, such as highways, they were downright shocked to see what happened to newer structures reinforced with steel, such as high-rise buildings.
More than 100 of those buildings experienced brittle fractures of their steel framing elements, and that was something that frankly just was not expected.
Engineers have traced the weakness in those structures to the places where the steel is welded together. It is a lesson, say engineers, that must not go unheeded. For one thing, seismologists now believe that downtown Los Angeles, with all its steel skyscrapers, is long overdue for a major quake.
As of this moment, Japanese National Police are reporting that the death toll from the earthquake in Japan has now climbed to more than 4,000. Our own Sheila McVicker has the story of two people who survived and struggled to help others.
Some residents of Kobe, thousands of them, have decided they can no longer stand the waiting, the wondering if the next shock that comes will be another big one. They're leaving the city. But in the hardest hit parts of Kobe, people still struggle to come to terms with what happened to them and to their neighbors. Ross Miller from Colorado Springs was inspecting what he had left.
And woke up to find the whole world moving on me. I could tell the building was going to come down. It just had the feeling to it. From all around here, all you could hear was people yelling, "Tasukete, tasukete," which in Japanese is help. And I started yelling "Tasukete" because I was trapped under the roof, and I was able to slide out onto the street wearing nothing but a t-shirt, underwear, and a pair of socks.
Ross and his neighbors were in shock, but someone found him some clothes, and they started to dig.
We got 3 people out of the house over there, and came back down this way where some woman was crying that her father was buried under the rubble. And we dug him out, but it was too late for him. So that was pretty much the end of the rescue.
He has been sorting through the rubble, trying to salvage what he can. But he says his possessions, his stereo, his pictures don't mean that much anymore.
Even the slightest tremble makes my heart start beating fast, like a jackhammer. I'm scared to be indoors. I haven't been in a building yet where I haven't thought about, am I going to be able to dig my way out of this one?
Kevin Nibelink and his girlfriend Claudia are both students.
And most people here were sleeping, including myself and Claudia.
Kevin and Claudia lived on the second floor of this house. They managed to get out.
And when the house came down, of course, everybody's calling for help, and we didn't know what to do. We were on the main floor and went around, and the two men, Italian man and a Japanese man, got out on one side, and the Japanese man was concerned about the woman in the next room because he had heard her cry, "Help."
The woman in the next room was an American, Vonnie Lynn Wong, a 24-year-old English teacher from Van Nuys, California. She had come back to Kobe after a trip to China just 2 weeks ago. On the night of the earthquake, she was in her bed, trapped by a beam.
We couldn't get to her right away because you can't get in from the side of the house. You had to go through the ceiling of the floor above her. But there was a doctor who lives in this house here, actually, behind us, and he came over, and he said, "It looks like there's no pulse. She's starting to get cold," and other signs, and indicated that she might have already passed away. To be able to hear somebody say help and then not be able to do anything. No?
For those who have stayed, tonight in Kobe it is cold. Survivors like Kevin and Claudia and Ross and their Japanese neighbors say there is still not enough food or water or shelter. But they say they are lucky. They have their lives.
And the fear is not over for Kobe. Since Tuesday, more than 800 aftershocks have rocked the city.
This is a Nightline Friday night special.
It was one of the world's most modern cities, a city the size of Philadelphia.
This isn't Armenia, you know. I mean, it's not. I mean, this is not the third world. This is Japan. I mean, and you read United States.
Where now hundreds of thousands of residents are left searching for food, for warmth, for loved ones.
Imagine if this was your life. This was your house, your family, your relatives. When you get to this magnitude of the suffering and devastation, it's stunning. It's just stunning.
Tonight, aftershocks, living in the wake of the Kobe earthquake.
This is ABC News Nightline. Reporting from Washington, Ted Koppel.
They are routine in Alaska, common in California, but as you work your way down the list of states alphabetically, you also see that they occur by the score in Hawaii and Idaho. They are less frequent in Illinois and Missouri, but they happen there. And there are records of earthquakes in Indiana, Maine and Massachusetts, New Mexico, New York and New Hampshire, Oklahoma and North Carolina. Nothing, of course, like that quake that shook Kobe and Osaka, but frequent enough and widespread enough that there are few Americans who can afford the assumption that it couldn't happen to one of us. The numbers from Japan are staggering. More than 4,500 dead now, nearly 24,000 injured, still more than 650 missing. 45,000 buildings destroyed or badly damaged, 110,000 households without electric power, 850,000 households that normally depend on natural gas without it. So many water pipes damaged that more than 1 million homes are without water. Highways are collapsed, railroads paralyzed, and it is cold. As we come to the end of this week, we've asked our correspondent Sheila McVicker to try to give some shape to the incomprehensible. Sheila joins me now from Osaka. I know, Sheila, that they're still counting the dead and looking for survivors, but how are the lucky ones who weren't hurt or killed? How are they coping?
Life is very difficult these days in Kobe. The people there have gone from living comfortable, middle-class 20th century lives to something from a previous century. Not only do they have the physical devastation and the loss of their jobs and their homes to contend with, there is a tremendous emotional toll. Kobe's citizens are people in shock. They don't know what has happened to them. They don't know what will happen to them. They don't know how to go on from here. Most of what used to work in Kobe doesn't work anymore. In the heart of the city's business district, office blocks and institutions are so badly damaged, employees will never be able to return to these buildings. City services, water and electricity still turned off. Blocks of shops where only a few entrepreneurs have reopened for business. In short, all the things that make a city damaged or destroyed.
This is a typical urban place in modern 20th century, and
it looks like San Francisco or Oakland to me.
Yeah.
You know.
We asked a group of earthquake and disaster experts to join us on a tour of Kobe to help us understand the magnitude of this city's tragedy and to see what lessons there might be for Americans. Charles Eady is an urban planner who helped draw up an emergency response program for Watsonville, California, and helped to deal with the impact of the 1989 Loma Prieta quake.
It's just sobering to just see block after block of this kind of damage, and to imagine what it would have been like during a busy shopping day with these streets filled with people.
Craig Martin is a San Francisco structural engineer who specializes in earthquake-resistant design. And Kazuo Suzuki is an engineering professor at Osaka University, specializing in construction techniques. For these specialists, this is not just a tour through devastation, but an opportunity to see firsthand what happens when a big quake strikes a major modern city, a city that could be American.
This is a unique experience. This is the first time that an earthquake of this size has struck an urban area like Kobe. I mean, these are modern, relatively modern structures. Some of them did quite well, others didn't. And I think in California and the United States, people need to see this and hopefully learn from it. Because it is painful, but there is an economic consequence. And here it is, we're looking at it.
None of California's recent earthquakes have come close to causing this kind of damage.
Building after building, row after row. See, this is what is so incomprehensible is in Northridge, Loma Prieta, and those earthquakes, you had pockets of concentrated damage. Whereas here you've got block after block, building after building, mile after mile. The downtown, and then there'll be the housing areas, and none of it is going to be salvageable. They're going to be hauling this stuff away for months.
On virtually every street corner, there are buildings that have been reduced to rubble and scrap metal.
The panels on the outside, it look like they're precast concrete. They've started to shed off. And then up in this area, you can see that these columns collapsed and the building is tilting towards us, actually. So there was a partial collapse of that story, 1, 2, 3, third story, I guess.
Oh, right, there's a whole floor in there that's
there's a whole floor. See, right here, it's pancake.
Right. Now, should that building, do you think, have been able to withstand an earthquake like this one?
Of course, this building should have been earthquake-proof.
But it became clear to our experts that buildings constructed more than 10 years ago to the building code standards and earthquake-resistant technology of the time did not withstand the shock.
Buildings built before the new code were more brittle and collapsed, but the new standards have made others more flexible, more ductile.
We have a similar situation in the U.S. because our codes changed as well for concrete. And now we have the ductile concrete requirements similar to yours, whereas before, a lot of the concrete frames that we built were probably similar to some of the ones that we see on the ground here in Kobe.
But what you're saying is that any main street in California, after a quake of this magnitude, there's a good chance it's going to look like this.
Well, I'll have to be technically correct and say not any street, but many streets, yes.
But there are other factors that also determine whether a building stands or falls. Sometimes it has to do with the earthquake itself.
You can have a short building and a tall building right next to each other. They're both subject to the same shaking. And one of them might fall down and the other one will do just fine. And that's probably because the ground motion was what we call high frequency, and that affects shorter buildings worse than taller buildings.
Professor Suzuki used his camera to demonstrate. With a long strap, the camera body didn't move. But when the strap was shortened and jiggled, the camera body jerked.
And shake it. Shake it. It moves more.
And that means, they say, that tall buildings could be safer. This earthquake registered a 7 on the Richter scale, but scientists believe that Kobe received most of its force. Craig Comartin found some evidence that may support the theory that energy from an earthquake can be focused in one direction. Underneath a railway overpass, steel columns snapped like pencils.
As it moves towards you, it can be reinforced. It can be stronger than it would be if you were, say, on the other side of the rupture. And sometimes what happens is that those forces build up to a very strong impulse that hits structures very strongly early in the earthquake. And that can cause brittle fractures like those.
And in Kobe's port, Japan's second largest, the giant cranes that load and unload freight have buckled with the force of the impact.
This wall failed, and so when it moved, this crane just jumped off its rails back here by about 1 meter. That's incredible.
Most of the port is built on landfill that dropped nearly 10 feet. It will be years before this port can again handle great volumes of imports and exports. And that means fewer jobs.
Obviously, for the people who have jobs here and live in Kobe, I mean, the personal impact for the employment situation for the families is devastating.
The Kobe earthquake, 25 seconds that stole jobs, homes, and lives.
When we come back, part 2 of Sheila McVicker's report, The Human Toll.
This is ABC News Nightline.
If the physical devastation is overwhelming, it is a human misery that cannot be measured. There are neighborhoods all over Kobe that look like this. Wood-framed houses collapsed, whole blocks burned.
We saw this stuff 5 miles, 6, 7 miles that way. Same scene repeated over and over again. The scale of it is, this is what's new about this, is the scale.
Sort of urban failure, basically. I mean, this isn't Armenia, you know. I mean, it's not. I mean, this is not the third world. This is Japan. I mean, and you read United States. I mean,
yeah, we think somehow it's not going to happen to us. If this is something that, you know, like I said, Armenia, where all the buildings collapsed and 30,000 people died, but this is happening in an advanced industrialized country, and that's it's got to be a big wake-up call.
In the Nagata district of Kobe, Japanese soldiers dig through what is left of the houses and shops, looking for the bodies they know are there. Emergency workers have also arrived. They too have been organized to join the search. The local police station collapsed onto its ground floor the night of the earthquake. Residents report missing relatives to officials working in a tent across the road. In the debris, the remnants of human life. Photo albums lie open. A couple search through the ruins of their house for a few bowls and cups.
People are just trying to find any one little thing that they can grab onto out of this rubble that will mean something to them, that they can hold on to carry them forward. And look at up here. You've got a little shop owner who's setting up, trying to just do what he can to be. This is his neighborhood. This is his area. Imagine if this was your life. This was your house, your family, your relatives.
that was the thought that I had as we were walking through those other residential areas, is what if I drove home and found something like this at my house with my family inside, or, you know.
Professor Suzuki went to ask a man from the neighborhood when the fires started that reduced the neighborhood to ashes. The story he was told was unbelievable.
The earthquake happened just before 6, and the residents say that by 7, the fire had already reached here.
No chance.
The fire came so quickly there was no time to help the people buried in the buildings that collapsed.
A family carefully sifted through the ashes of their house. They were searching for fragments of bone, all that was left of those who died there. Oranges, a traditional Japanese gift for the dead, were left to feed the souls of the spirits.
When you get to this magnitude of the suffering and devastation, it's stunning. It's just stunning.
How has this changed your perceptions of what an earthquake like this would be like in an American city?
Well, I think, again, as Craig said, it makes me realize how quickly it could happen, how suddenly it could happen, and also how even if we have plans, and even if we have prepared for emergency response, and even if we have mutual aid agreements and all of these things, that a disaster, by definition, is the most overwhelming event that a human area can suffer, and you can't keep up with it. It's so big, and it could be so big, and this is so big that you just realize what it means to have a disaster. And if there's any message for people, it's to, you know, we really have to take a hard look at what our level of preparedness is and the things that we ought to be thinking about, because it will happen.
When we come back, we'll be joined once again by Sheila McVicker from Osaka.